Today I'm too excited to have coffee breaks. Today we're having drink breaks, also because it's very warm. Hello and welcome to the Moose Lady School. Today we won't be talking about runes at all in the Moose Lady School. Today we will talk about something similar to this or even this. These things. We will be talking about body modifications. Ancient ones, Viking ones, super cool. Are you excited? I am excited. So, for anyone who has a social media, who's ever played a video game that is inspired by the Viking Age or the Vikings, or anyone who's owned a TV and have seen a movie inspired by the Viking Age, usually we are exposed to these Vikings, especially from the TV show Vikings, if anyone remembers that one, the one about Ragnar Lodbrok. So usually when it comes to these social media, when it comes to video games, when it comes to TV series, we are usually exposed to Viking Age people being covered in all sorts of haircuts and so on, and also tattoos. Usually they are covered in from top to toe tattoos everywhere. And that is not what we will be talking about today, because did you know we have no real archaeological evidence for Vikings having tattoos? There has not been one single man or woman from the Viking Age found with dragons and runes and all sorts of cool things tattooed on them. I am not saying, however, that we will never find it. I am certain at some point we might, maybe. There are archaeological finds of tattoos that predates the Viking Age with thousands of years. Now, for all my Southern American friends on here, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. There is a mummy that comes from the Chinchorro people from South America around the area of Chile. And this Chinchorro mummy has face tattoos around here. It's called like a mustache tattoo, but he has tattoos here. And this mummy has been dated to around between 2560, around there, to 1970 BC. And we also have our oldest tattoo, the Tyrolean ice mummy, Ötzi. He's not only one of the oldest, like, naturally formed mummies in the world, he also has a bunch of tattoos. And he has been dated to around 3370 to 3100, again, BC. Tattoos is very old. There's a lot of these examples with mummies and so on, which is why I'm saying it is not impossible that in the future, maybe we will dig up a Viking somewhere with tattoos. And for reference, I am throwing out all of these numbers at you right now. For reference, the Viking Age starts around the other half of 700 AD in Scandinavia. So BC, like thousands of years before BC, is a long way from the Viking Age. And written sources, they are not archaeological evidence. Even if I wish they were, it would be cool. We're still talking about Vikings with body modification today though. This body modification blows my mind, and this is why I need to tell you about it. I need to tell everyone about this Viking body modification that is so often unknown to people, and is so cool and is so mysterious. So I'm going on record now, this is the teacher's personal opinion. I think this body modification is so much more mysterious and cool than if we were to find Ragnar Lodbrok dig down with runes all over his body, you know. We are going to talk about a body modification that Vikings had, and it is filed teeth. Yep. Look at that. How cool. So cool. Did you really think we wouldn't have a coffee break? So individuals with filed teeth have been found in graves on Gotland, Sweden, in Denmark, and in a mass grave in England. The largest number of individuals that have been found with these body modifications was found on Kopparsvik burial ground on Gotland, where over 40 men had these teeth body modifications. So the origin of finding these body modifications actually doesn't go back that far. We are talking about the 1990s. So archaeologists find peculiar skeletons in Fjälkinge and in Trelleborg in Skåne, Sweden. And of course, these are not fresh skeletons. They have a couple of years on their necks, so to say. So osteologists, of course, they thought that these damaged teeth could have been a consequence of the skeletons being put into the soil for a long time, and also a consequence of how they had lived, what they have done during their life. Teeth health wasn't really a thing back in the day. So they just thought, maybe the teeth are just a bit worn down, you know? I don't blame them for thinking so. I think it's very logical. But you and me and Oscar, we know that the teeth, they were not just worn down by time. They were much more fascinating than that. They had clearly been filed down with intent. We are not talking about one pair of gums being filed down to this extent. We're talking about many, many, many. I want to do a little bit of a shout out to one of the osteologists. An osteologist is the expert on skeletons, basically. So one of the main osteologists that was on place to review these skeletons, where they discovered that the teeth had been filed down with intent, she actually went on and created a children's book about this body modification, which I think is so cool. Here it is. It is available in English. That is also why I'm shouting it out, because if it's available in English, I know it's more available to people outside of Sweden. For all of my Swedish people out there, in Swedish it is called Vikingarna visar tänderna. Got you. After exploring the possibility that, wait, have these guys actually done this to themselves? Have they filed down their teeth like this with intent? One natural question that comes into mind is, why? Why would anyone do this? Why would anyone do this? Kinda hurts thinking about, right? Maybe it was a way to send a signal to other people that, hey, I belong to this group, look at my teeth, and then other people would know. Maybe it was to scare people as well. Like, it's kind of crazy doing that, right? Maybe it was to show which status this particular person with the filed teeth had within the group that they belonged to. From the individuals that has been found so far, it seems to be consistent of men, adult men that had these body modifications. First, it was thought that the individuals with the filed teeth had been linked to warfare mainly, but this has been discussed very carefully, since the skeleton, not all of the skeleton shows proof or signs of living a very violent life. But again, not every warrior that goes to war gets injured in the skeleton. We have a bunch of soft parts as well. One cool addition to this is, it is thought that not only did they file their teeth, they actually painted them in as well with charcoal or something similar to make the lines in the teeth show extra much. So again, if you see a bunch of men coming at you with not only filed teeth, and also if their reputation precedes them that these guys, they are crazy, they are filing their teeth, they don't give up, you know. But if they also are running towards you with like soot or black paint on their teeth where they filed them, that kind of says something that would be scary. It also kind of, to me, sends a signal of, hey, we can endure this pain, we inflict this pain willingly upon ourselves. What are you going to do about us coming here, basically? I've been talking a lot about the 1990s, but there was a more recent study about these things in 2014 where they re-examined the material of these teethers. Some of these skeletons actually appear in the Vendel era, which is just before the Viking Age. The main finds were found during the Viking Age. The latest find, when they re-examined the skeletons, was at the very end of the Viking Age, between the Viking Age and the medieval era that was coming. And those teeth modifications they actually found in Christian graves. So for hundreds of years in between, from the Vendel era to the almost medieval Christian graves, it tells us something that it doesn't have to do with religion probably. It has to do with some cultural thing. It's not like they found one set of gums that was filed down in the Christian graves. They found around 20 men with these like filed teeth. So let's go back a little bit from the Christian graves to a non-Christian grave during the Viking Age at Birka, where one individual that was found with this teeth body modification actually probably was a human sacrifice. So Birka was a very important place for merchants and travelers during the Viking Age. There is this particular famous grave from Birka that contains the Moose Man. Promise, it is not my man. I don't take accountability for whatever was found in his grave. So in the Moose Man's grave, they found moose antlers as well as other grave goods. So that is where the name comes from. There was 2 individuals that have been sacrificed. They have probably been beheaded just before they died in order to follow their master into his grave. And one of these individuals that was beheaded and laid on top of the Moose Man had filed teeth. And in the beginning, when they found these individuals that had this body modification, they were kind of careful, like, were they merchants? Were they straight out warriors? What is the red thread? And after re-examining the evidence again in 2014, they also found that not all, but many of these men had lived harsh lives that had put evidence of harsh violence upon their skeleton remains. The theory about these skeletons being mainly men was confirmed during the 2014 study as well. There is only 3 individuals out of all of them that they couldn't decide if it was a man or not, because of how time had handled the skeletal remains of these people. Sometimes skeletons are just not in a good enough shape for you to be able to test them successfully. But when re-examining these skeletons again, the scientists could rule out that they belong to the same class in society. They didn't. I mean, one of them was sacrificed with the Moose Man, and he wasn't the only one who seems to have been a victim of thraldom. Some of these men had gotten different types of food, which pointed to them eating very poorly, which would point to them also being trälar. Trälar or thralls are the slaves of the Viking Age society. And again, when we think about the poor guy who ended up together with the Moose Man at Birka, it adds up. He was probably not seen as some high status person in his society. And other finds of these men with filed teeth, they have been found in richer graves with a lot of grave goods. There has been gaming pieces, swords, stone pictures, very clearly high status in their society. And also when tested, they had been fed very properly during their lifetime. So there is not really anything to indicate that these men belonged into the same class in their society. So again, why did they have these body modifications? What binds them all together? So let's travel to England a bit. Let's leave Scandinavia behind. In the beginning of this video, I told you that there was filed teeth men found in a mass grave in England. In southern England, in Dorset, is it called Dorset? Where they did an isotopic analysis on the bones that showed that these men with the filed teeth in the mass grave probably came from Scandinavia. So something that seems to be unifying this group of men when it isn't class or status in the society, and we can't be sure if they have been warriors or not, they certainly have been travelers. When isotopic analysis have been done on these skeletons, many of them are not buried where they were born. So since we're talking about teeth, it is usually through the enamel of the ancient teeth in the skeleton that will tell you where a person likely was born. And you know, if you find someone in a mass grave in England and you can look at their teeth and you see, wait, they have eaten consistently with someone who was living in Scandinavia during these times, you know that they were not born in England, they have traveled. Even within Sweden you can see these differences, that someone might have been born in southern Sweden, but they are buried up here. So they were travelers, many of them. And I have to bring this up because it's kind of cool. It's just a theory. I don't know if I buy it personally, but there is a theory about how Harald Bluetooth, you know, the guy with the logo, that he had something to do with these filed teeth body modification men. Basically the theory goes that these men were tied to Harald Bluetooth since he's the Viking king with the tooth going on, right? The blue tooth. And since there's theories that they have probably painted in their teeth, you see the connection, right? So maybe this filing of the teeth was some type of ritual to join his soldier group or his entourage of some sort. In my personal opinion, this theory is very much a reach. But who am I? I wasn't there. It's a theory. We're talking about stuff we don't know anything about, really. Not even Oscar was there. He should have been, so he could answer us. There's also a discussion to be had about social psychology when it comes to these body modifications. There's a question being raised, who are you doing it for? Is it for yourself? Or is it for someone else? Is it to send a signal? Or is it important to you? And humans are humans, even if they lived thousands of years ago, or if they live today. There is a discussion to be had, like, who did you do it for? Did you do it for yourself? Was it important to you to have these teeth? Or was it to send a signal, right? So where does this lead us to? Where do we end up? What do we know about these people? They were adult men. That's all. There is probably some social pattern to these men and what their teeth meant and what they meant with filing their teeth like this and what tied them all together. But I am afraid that that is a social construct of their society thousands of years ago that can't be connected to graves. Besides them coming from around the Scandinavian area and for them to like taking a trip every now and again, their backgrounds are so different, their isotopic analyses are so different. If they were poor, if they were rich, if they were fed well, if they were being sacrificed together with the Moose Man, if they were Christian, if they were living during the Vendel era, they are so different. They could have been merchants as well as they could have been warriors. They were rich and they were poor. They are all across the map. The most of these men are buried, however, in central merchant places of the Iron Age. Personally, for me, it is really fascinating, the whole discussion about was this something that they did as joining a group, some kind of ritual that they performed to join a group of some sort, or if it was just, you know, a fashion statement. I mean, if you look at me, I have piercings, I have the tattoos, I have the crazy hair and the dreads and the undercut and all of that stuff going on. But at the same time, I am always the only one out of the group that I hang out with that has these things. So what does that really say? Because if someone were to dig me up and my luscious hair is still intact and I am somehow a bog body where they could discover these tattoos and they could discover the piercing and so on, would they also link me to belong to a group where everyone had crazy hair, everyone had these crazy tattoos, everyone had piercings and so on? when that is not really the reality. That's it. I wish I had all of the answers for you guys, but I don't. It is a riddle. I just wanted you to know about it. It's such an interesting topic. It is so interesting discussing it. Feel free to discuss it below. Absolutely, I would love to read your take on this. For all we know, maybe these people were just seen as edgy. Maybe these people were seen as someone who had magical powers. Maybe they belong to a secret society. I really hope you learned something new with me here today in the Moose Lady classroom. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you here next time. Bye!